Welcome back. You're now watching the political segment on the weekend show. Monday is Democracy Day, and we've gone a long way from where we were to where we are now. However, with every election we've had in Nigeria, there's been one controversy or the other. We now have a newly elected and sworn in president. What are the expectations of Nigeria across board, regardless of party, regardless of religion or affiliation? Joining us to have the conversation today, we have
Suleiman Ibrahim. Good morning and welcome back to the show.
Good morning.
Ose Aneni joining us.
Always a pleasure.
Joining us again, we have Bukola Ido.
Thank you.
Welcome back.
Ose, we'll actually start with you. You've been on this show a couple of times, and you've been very objective with your opinions. I know your party is in court at the moment, but we do have a newly elected president. What does the implication of where we are in our democracy in Nigeria, what's the implication of where we are today on the state of the nation?
Okay, because our case is in court, I won't speak too much about the elections and what happened. But, you know, coming from 1999, 2003, 2007, where we had admittedly very flawed elections, up until the 2023 election, I think we have seen sort of a progression in the laws around electioneering, in the laws around the election process itself. Whether they've been observed is another thing. And I reference 2007 in particular because even though those elections were flawed, one of the things late President Yar'Adua did in his inaugural speech was admit that the process that brought him into power was less than perfect, and he made a commitment to improve the process. I think when I listened to President Tinubu's speech, I was expecting to hear something very similar. You know, what happened in February is public knowledge. And I would have expected an admission at least that the election that brought him into power were not ideal, were not perfect. And I was very surprised when he told the opposite line. He actually said, I think that they were the best we've ever had. And that sort of like soured the tone for me. What I expect from any Nigerian president, not President Tinubu in particular, is a commitment to the rule of law, is a commitment to serving the Nigerian people. You know, most people would have woken up to news that the central bank governor has been suspended. To my mind, he's probably one of the worst central bank governors we've ever had. But when you speak about a commitment to the rule of law, the Central Bank Act doesn't allow the president unilaterally suspend or remove a central bank governor. You need the National Assembly. That is going to be sworn in a couple of days, I think, on Tuesday. So I don't understand why the president, you know, if he's committed to protecting and observing the Constitution, he took an oath to protect and observe, couldn't wait 3 or 4 days.
But we have precedents where a CBN governor has been forced into early retirement.
I spoke about democracies being a gradual process of improvement. So even if, and I think you referred to the removal of Sanusi.
Yes.
So even if previous administrations had done something wrong, it's not an excuse to continue wrongdoing. Like I said, the central bank governor is part of the problems we're suffering in Nigeria with his policies, with his breach of the law. I don't know if you guys remember when we were seeing posters of him saying that he wanted to run for president.
He once took the government to court, actually.
You know, so I'm not here to defend him. I want that to be very clear. But even if he violated sections of the CBN Act himself, look at Ways and Means, for instance. Central bank is not supposed to lend more than 5% of revenues, previous year's revenues. This central bank governor more than exceeded that. Central bank governor is not to, I think it's section 9, is not supposed to show any, it's supposed to be a full-time governor. And so his forays into politics violated that. I think that's section 9 of the Central Bank Act. So I'm not defending him. He violated the act. The revenues one, I think, is section 38. But if I'm quoting the act and saying he's violating it, you know, you are going to have to use that same act to remove him, and President Tinubu didn't do that. So that sort of is a bit disappointing. I want to hope, like I said, I want to be charitable and hope it's just an omission. Maybe the handlers around him didn't advise him. President Tinubu came out publicly during the election to say that the central bank governor was persecuting him and was implementing policies supposed to torpedo his ambitions. So there might be a bit of, personal animus there. But that personal animus doesn't give you the right to violate the laws and constitution you swore to uphold.
This is very interesting because for a long time now, Nigerians have asked for a president with the will to make and take the tough decisions. And so we can all admit that Nigerians have suffered a lot financially, economically in the last couple of years. And literally nobody was sacked or fired, no repercussion for wrong policy decisions. And so how do we balance taking those tough decisions and doing it democratically? Is there a middle ground?
I think seeking for a middle ground is how you end up with dictators. I think the law is the law. And Nigeria has had a history of dictators who were strong men. In 1984, we had Head of State Buhari then, who was a strong man. And again, if you remember, those are one of the worst periods economically that Nigeria experienced.
And for the media.
And for the media, exactly. So our laws don't remove our rights. They don't remove our freedoms. I applauded the president's admission, again in his inaugural speech, that there will be no subsidy. So he comes across as a man who is committed to taking those tough decisions. What I would advise is that, he needs to take those decisions under the cover of the law, or we end up with another strong man, just like we had with President Buhari, who acted sort of like ultra-vires of the Constitution and destroyed Nigeria's economy and destroyed our freedoms. We are, I think, 22% food inflation now. I was listening to the former Statistician General. I think he's now with one of these consulting firms, saying that because of this fuel subsidy removal, we might see 5 percentage points increases in food inflation next month. And so there sort of is a lag. Nigerians haven't yet started experiencing the worst of these policies. And I would expect the president to put in place programs and policies that will sort of like cushion the shocks that will come. People are no longer buying fuel, people are no longer buying products because prices are rising. And so if you're a producer, there's no demand and your costs are increasing. I cut my hair to look pretty for you guys before I came here. The price had doubled.
Same, it happened.
The price had doubled. Because small and micro enterprises use petrol. Your Dangotes use diesel, so they sort of are insulated. But the average Nigerian is going to suffer a lot. And I think the president should focus on those policies rather than, like I said, settling personal scores and violating our laws.
Okay, Bukola, could you share the current challenges facing Nigeria's democracy and how can these challenges be addressed?
Well, I think I will just build on what he said, and that is the major challenge we have is the respect for the rule of law. Because as far as popular opinion doesn't make things right. For instance, we understand, the CBN governor have done a lot of things contrary to the law, or some of the policies are putting us in a downward trend economically and a whole lot of that. But that still doesn't mean you just come out like an emperor and say, go home. So the provisions of the laws are there. And that is why when you are talking about democracy, the other time I said, we may not be there. Because what we are practicing now is still like a bit of hybrid. You understand? And like an hybrid, not full-fledged democracy. So it's a mix of authoritarian government together with democracy. And because you can actually see a situation where, whether with warrant or no warrant, the DSS can invade the place. Whether you just see people being without knowing where they are. You see, you can mention media people, maybe journalists who we are still looking for today and no communication about where they are, but you find out that at some point the news was that they are just being taken and things like that. In the last administration, some people went into asylum. Some people left the country. You know, so when you look at that, you still find that it traces of being an authoritarian, things like a dictator. But at the same time, we are not deceived to think conducting an election, and we call it uninterrupted, you know, like that is democracy. That is not the actual democracy. In fact, election is just a platform for people to get into the government to practice the principle of democracy. So you can't practice democracy without being elected as a representative.
I think that's a good place. Let's bring you in. Traditional leaders have suffered a lot in democracy, and that's according to some Nigerians. We've seen what happened in Kano State, where the governor can wake up and dethrone a ruling traditional leader. We've seen it even in Kaduna State, where a day before the inauguration of a new president, another chief was dethroned, and we've seen the state governors use their own power to change history and tradition because for reasons best known to them. How do you think that the traditional institutions can be strengthened with our democracy, especially in this new administration?
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you very much for calling me to this very point. Let me first of all take this opportunity to commiserate with the family of DPC and family of AIT in general for the greatest loss that we had. Please accept deep-hearted sympathy. Talking about involvement of traditional ruler or situation of traditional rulers today, I think I'm beginning to have a little hope. I'm beginning to have a little hope because of how I see we're beginning to have leaders that have intention, are showing intention that maybe they have this country at heart. Though somebody like Mr. President today was not that kind of president that received a lot of love. But to be candid with you, somebody like me, I was very crazy when Buhari was coming in, that he will make things, at least he will achieve my 75% dream. But to the best of my knowledge, apart from road infrastructure, I cannot credit him for anything. But you see, I have positive feeling that Tinubu and Shetima have something unique. Yesterday, I saw a lot of people having a meeting in the villa yesterday also. So, the class of the people, Konkoso, for example, was in villa as an opposition. I don't know either it is because of the Kano tension in Kano that makes them to bring them together. I don't know, but it is a very good move. The past administrator couldn't make an effort even to bring
Opposition.
Not only opposition, even his party men that are having feud, that are having problems, he cannot bring them together. But these people, this guy, Mr. President today, bring in even opposition in order to clear a point.
So I also understand that he met with traditional rulers in the last 2 days, which is commendable. But how does that affect chiefs like you, who in most cases have had to leave your communities because of insecurity and move to Abuja or other cities?
Thank you very much. You see, yesterday the president promised he will support the traditional rulers. And I want to correct him on that. I think he's not, the traditional institution does not need support now. What they need is inclusion. They are out of the box. So by supporting, there is no program assigned constitutionally for them. Get them involved. You will achieve security things. If you want to reach out to politicians, they are not afraid of taking giving whatever they have from the government to their girlfriend or to their spouses. But I'm telling you, no traditional ruler, he will give him responsibility to his community or to his people, that he will just take them away. So if you want to reach out to the masses of Nigeria, let him use the traditional institution. Let him get involved. Let him write letters to them as CNC directly. If he needs something, let him write direct letter to them. Sir, the insecurity in this country today, there's one local government in Zamfara, Dansadao. Sir, I'm telling you, as if they are not, even in film, I have never heard of this. What the way and manner the bandits are provoking now, I don't know if they want to make the president to be afraid. Because I'm very sure is where he is getting a very bad signal. He have to do something. As he just come in now, let him stand firm, emphasize, hit the point at the nail. Let him not allow others to penetrate him by presenting themselves. So this thing. Let him not give their attention to those that will say, I could have slapped a former governor if I saw him. Let's keep all these things aside. Let's face reality. Nigerian, we are on fire. We are on fire. Look at this subsidy of a thing today. I'm telling you, less than 25% of Nigerians are the ones earning salary. Even if he adds salary, it will not solve the problem. So government policies, government have to stand up firmly and present and understand and redesign the strategy of solving Nigeria. And one worst thing that is disturbing me is how Nigeria find themselves today. I know Tinubu carried Muslim ticket, but with how their presentation to me today, I was not his fan, but to be candid with you, Doctor, I appreciate for now the point they are trying to make. Yeah, so this divisive house, Nigerian that we are having is very dangerous. That even we, the traditional institution, we are finding it very difficult to manage. So politicians are dividing us just for their selfish interests, which is not okay. For example, sorry to mention the videos are going around about Rufai recently. See, all these things does not call all they are doing it for their personal interest, because that presentation, he is not doing it for Muslims. As far as I'm concerned, he is doing it because he lost the PDP won Kaduna State before that video was taken before the gubernatorial election.
Okay, it's good that you cleared that out. And just because of time, I really want to bring Ose in, and because for their final charge, and this is to Nigerians. Yeah. What's your charge to young Nigerians who are now interested in politics, to the politicians who have now won positions, and Nigerians in general as we enter a new dispensation and mark Democracy Day on Monday? So we'll start with Ose and then Bukola.
Okay, so thank you. I think you hear a lot of despondency in the youth when you talk about the outcomes of the 2022 elections. Maybe it didn't turn out the way they wanted for a majority of them. And I say majority deliberately. President Tinubu has the lowest rating we've ever had since 1999. Obasanjo, I think, came in at about 69%. Even in 2019, President Buhari had about 55%. He had the majority of votes cast in the election. This is the first time we're having a president coming in with a minority mandate, where the bulk of opposition votes are more than his vote. He only got about 36%. And so I want to encourage young Nigerians especially that they should understand that democracy is a process. And they've made their voices heard in this election. they should continue staying engaged in the process, because democracy is not an election, it's a process. And so you have to hold the president and government at the state and federal levels accountable. I also want to make the point, just like my brother here said, that I sort of have been impressed with President Tinubu's initial moves to unify the country. He has met with traditional rulers, he has met with partisan and opposition governors and even National Assembly members. And I think he understands that because he doesn't have a popular mandate to push through the difficult policies he will need to push through. He needs to have everybody on board and pulling together. I'll just encourage him to stay that course. And as we approach Democracy Day on Monday, just as I would say the president, is making some of the right moves. In his inaugural speech, he said he's not going to crack down on opposition voices. And, so I don't expect to see people fleeing the country like we saw under the previous administration. But then you have pockets of undemocratic elements. Like my brother said, we all saw that video of that character in Kaduna. But maybe even more concerning, I don't know if you guys saw what happened in Lagos, where a recently sworn-in speaker was saying they are going to push through legislation to protect indigenes to the expense of
I think we'll actually have a full show, a full conversation.
So I want us to know that even though there is hope maybe in some sports nationally, we need to be attentive and watch out for these undemocratic spaces that might be growing up in other parts of the country.
30 seconds.
I think what we need to begin to look at now, the young people, is basically to be part of the process. We have to be part of the process. You have to move from now until we get what happened at the Election Petition Tribunal up to the Supreme Court, and then we close that chapter. But even at that, one thing we need to begin to do now is to forget about them versus us. So it should be us now. We have a country to protect, and then we have to participate. We have to be part of it. We have to demand accountability.
Thank you very much. Because of time, that's the much we can take on today's episode of The Weekend Show. Our charge from The Weekend Show is for Nigerians to hold their state governors and elected representatives accountable. We need to move away from just focusing on the federal and focus on the state governors, the House of Assembly, House of Reps, and Senators. Hold them accountable the same way we hold the president accountable, because they have a responsibility to provide, protect, and secure the state. You can watch our episodes on YouTube at Weekend Show NG. You can also follow us on social media at Weekend Show NG on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can follow me at Andy Madaki, and you can follow Didi
at Didi on Instagram and Twitter.
I want to wish you all a happy Democracy Day on Monday. Do have a blessed weekend and the week ahead.